Sometimes you got to drive your house down the road. But when I'm not driving my house down the road, I want maximum fuel efficiency, which is why we drive a Prius. Well, it's late February, and I am car camping in a Prius in Utah, middle of nowhere, Utah. A little bit of story. This is literally my fourth trip from the Southwest Desert, where Melanie's at right now, up to northeast Wyoming, just this winter. This is about late January, now into late February, so I've been up there 4 times for work stuff. So, of course, there's more than one way to be a traveler, as my granddaughters like to call me. There's also more than one way to car camp in a Prius, which is what I'm doing again tonight. So I'll share in this video how I car camp in a Prius and how I do not car camp in a Prius. This video was actually intended when I thought, hey, I'll make this video show some of my trip from Wyoming back down to Pahrump, Nevada. Not all of it, of course, because it's like 16 hours of windshield time, and probably nobody wants to see that. I average about 24 hours real time from when I leave to when I actually get back. And the engine of the Prius just restarted. You may have heard that. So anyway, we'll share that stuff, and I will share some clips with you from the interesting things in the remainder of this trip from middle of Utah down to Pahrump. But first, I'm going to get some sleep. It's 3:30 in the morning, local time here in Utah, which is a mountain time zone. And I've been running on like 3 to 4 hours of sleep for the last 3 or 4 nights. So I'm going to get some sleep, and I'll be back with you in the morning. And like I say, we'll share some footage of the rest of the trip so y'all can ride along with me. Well, I'm back. It's the next morning. Did sleep fine, even though it was only about 3 hours again. Chilly night overnight, 21 degrees. But we're still here in Utah, and I'm right here. I camped very near here last night, but I am at the Parowan Gap petroglyphs. Very cool site. I've been here a few times before, so we're going to look around and see what's here, and then we'll be making our way on towards Nevada. So this is the gap itself right behind me here. This notch in this rock wall here. You can kind of see it's a pretty substantial hill. I don't know what the right word is for it. Ridge, something like that. And there's just this notch through it that's known as the gap. What's unique about this gap is that it's a wind gap. It was not carved by water, as is often the case when you see erosion like this. It's just carved by wind blasting it over the period of quite a few years, apparently. And we have this notch or gap through the rock wall. So in years past, the local native tribes who lived or passed through here, so some of them carved petroglyphs on these rocks in Parowan Gap, what is now known as Parowan Gap. So that's the Parowan Gap petroglyphs here in Parowan Gap, which I'm standing right in front of here. Cool site, cool historical site. I've been here several times over the years, probably half a dozen or more anyways. It's about, I want to say 10 or 12 miles off of I-15 at Parowan, Utah. So you'll probably have to use your GPS or do some research to find it, because it's it's a decent enough road getting out here. It's just not going to be apparent. You just kind of drive up, get off I-15 and drive off into the desert. But cool sight. You might enjoy it if you like looking around. It's basically the main area here. There's a gravel parking lot, and then there's like a concrete sidewalk, and then you're kind of walking along the side of the road through the gap to see those things. There were a couple spots where I got off the road on a trail in the dirt. There are some areas that are closed off so you cannot get close to too, in hopes of protecting the resources here. So I'm back to the parking area here at the Parowan Gap petroglyphs. My Prius sitting there waiting. So that's the Parowan Gap and the Parowan Gap petroglyphs. Like I say, cool sight, always fun to stop and wander around there. So why car camping in a Prius? Well, the first obvious reason is Toyota reliability, right? Now, they've had a few issues with their Tacomas and Tundras recently, but generally speaking, Toyota ranks up there on the top of everybody's list of the best vehicles ever made. And the Prius, of course, is no exception to that. Reliable car that gets you where you want to go without much worry. Number two, fuel efficiency. The Prius is famous for the fuel efficiency because it's a hybrid, of course. 50 miles a gallon is not uncommon or unrealistic. Sometimes, in fairness, it's only 48 miles a gallon or 46 miles a gallon. And sometimes if you're driving through crazy wind like I was at yesterday, well, it ends up being like 39 miles a gallon. That's really disappointing. But when you're doing a quick 1,000-mile trip for work, that saves a ton of money on fuel, and it's just an overall easy driving experience. Much more comfortable to drive than the big van or anything, and much, much, much better fuel efficiency. And if you do get caught in a wind, which there's a lot of in this area in the springtime especially, it can be year-round, but especially in the springtime here, early spring, late winter, it's just a whole lot easier to be driving a aerodynamic, fuel-efficient car. There are also other bonuses to a hybrid in general, the Prius in particular here, and that is just because of the nature of the hybrid. You can when you turn the car on, well, it doesn't start the engine necessarily. The car is just powered on because you can drive on the electric battery at low speeds. That also means you can run all your accessories. The big bonus of that is going to be climate control, but also, of course, you could play your stereo, play a podcast, whatever you want to do over the car stereo system. And you can also charge some electronics that way on the 12-volt power point adapters. The real big thing, though, is going to be climate control. That works best in the summer when it's hot and muggy and you want to be able to have some air conditioning because it runs off battery rather than off the engine. You can have your air conditioning running, and then as necessary, the engine will start to recharge the battery and then turn off, and your air conditioning will just keep running. So that's really fantastic in the summer. I remember years ago, my kids were little, we were making a trip from upstate New York to Montana, and we stopped somewhere in the Midwest. I don't remember where exactly. Late at night, pulled into a rest area to get a few hours of sleep, and it was hot and it was humid. And of course, this is long before the days of hybrids. So we had all the windows cracked an inch or two for ventilation. It would have been nice to have them down all the way because it was hot and humid, and there was, multiple people in the car breathing and everything. But for security reasons, we only put down an inch or two. Well, I had parked on the end of the line at the rest area where it would be a little bit darker and quieter. What I did not account for was that we were not too far for some trees and brush, and we all woke up an hour or two later completely getting eaten alive by mosquitoes. The car was like a swarm of mosquitoes. The only other time I think I've seen so many mosquitoes in one place trying to eat me was during a canoe expedition trip / seminary course that my father and I did together up in the Algonquin Provincial Park in Ontario, Canada. That was probably within a few years of that same time frame. So anyway, you don't have to worry about that if you're driving a hybrid or a Prius hybrid because you can leave your air conditioning running in the evening. The heat doesn't work quite as good, but I was still grateful to have it last night. And the reason I say it doesn't work quite as good is because that does run off the engine. So you leave the car turned on, the engine will turn off because you're parked, and you can have your heat on, and as the car needs to, it'll restart to warm up the engine to give you heat. So that will start a lot more often than it does with the air conditioning, and it is a little annoying because it'll wake me up but you do kind of, or at least I got used to it after a while, so it's not as noticeable. That was a nice bonus last night, because it was 21 degrees here in the Parowan area in Utah. And while that's plenty doable, of course, I left my sleeping bags in Wyoming because I've been going back and forth so much, figured it was easier to leave them there. That challenge, of course, meant that when I got a cold night, I didn't have anything. The sleeping bags, I do have a heavy blanket with me, but it's not quite as efficient for retaining body heat as a sleeping bag is. So I went to bed without the heat. I warmed it up for into bed, turned the car off, and then somewhere in the wee hours of the morning, the more wee hours in the morning, because I stopped at like 3:30, so I think it was around 4:30 or 5, I turned the car back on and let it run some heat to warm it up. So really great advantages there. Now, you may have noticed when I last recorded that clip last night, I was sleeping in the or getting ready to sleep in the front passenger seat here. I can sleep in the back. I've done it before. A lot of people do. If you've seen videos about people traveling and camping in a Prius, they sleep in the back. I have to pull the passenger seat forward and fold the back seat down, of course. I'd show you, but I got all my travel stuff, work gear, inspection tools, everything else in the back, and a ladder. So I'm not going to be able to show you that right now. But you know what it looks like. You fold the back seat down as a 60-40 split. So you fold down one side, or both if you want, slide the seat forward, and you can sleep back there. The catch is, with this, at least with this particular model, the Prius V, which I don't think they make anymore, when the seats fold down, they're not all the way flat. So I can sleep on it. My head's just a little bit elevated, no big deal. My feet are down at the foot end. Melanie prefers to do it the other way, but I like to have my head up in the middle here, and my head's a little elevated then. The catch is, it's really, really challenging for me to get in and out because of the way the door is positioned, and the seats are slightly elevated, and the roof isn't all that high. So I can do it. It's just not a lot of fun. Once I'm in, it's fine. The challenge then, of course, is that I don't know about you, but I never sleep through the whole night without having to get up and use the facilities wherever they or whatever they may be. So that's kind of annoying at best. I have to go through that whole rigmarole to get out of a sleeping bag, try and get myself spun around, get out the door, and it's just more aggravation than it's worth to me. So I just sleep in the front passenger seat when I'm traveling in the Prius. So whatever works for you, your mileage may vary on that. And if you're a little bit not quite as tall as I am, maybe it'll work better for you being in the back. But I'm able to do that even with my, clothes and bathroom bag and stuff, and some inspection tools, and a fold-up ladder that I've got, extendable ladder that I've got back there, which does go all the way from the back hatch to the back of the driver's seat here. We just stand it up on its edge, and it does fit, which is fantastic. My daughter-in-law was chuckling the other night. I was telling her about it, and she thought it was pretty amusing. The picture of me trying to sleep in the back of a Prius with a ladder and all the inspection gear and everything. But I have done it, but most of the time I just sleep in the passenger seat. I find it easier and more convenient. It's also easier to reach the climate controls and stuff. I have to adjust that at night. One thing with the hybrid here, you step on the brake pedal, then turn the power on. That's a little challenging to do if you're sleeping in the back or in the passenger seat. I can do it from the passenger seat, but I have to kind of reposition. I can reach down and hit the brake pedal with my left hand and turn the power on with my right hand. Melanie has this handy little piece of bamboo that she likes to use, and she can even hit the brake pedal from in the back seat if she needs to turn the power on and off in the night. So we do have a whole video about car camping that we recorded with Melanie a year or so ago, I think. So I'll have a link to that in the video description if you want to check it out. She goes through in good detail how she did it, because she did quite a bit of traveling and camping in the Prius several years ago. As I mentioned, I've been running back and forth to Wyoming, between Wyoming and the desert this year. If you include the time that I've been on the road doing that, I've only spent about half the time in the desert and half the time driving to and from Wyoming or in Wyoming for work. We have two main businesses and a side hustle. You may have heard me mention this before in other videos, but I know there's always interest in how you support yourself while you do a lot of traveling. And I do enough traveling that my granddaughters just call me a traveler. What we have is I have a content creation business or a publishing business. I'm never sure which is the best way to describe it, because I do both. I have this YouTube channel I do some other publications. I do video editing for clients. I do publishing projects, book and other publishing projects, and consulting for independent authors. A few years ago, we started in a property inspection business in Wyoming, and we do home and commercial real estate inspections, as well as some specialty things like aging in place inspections and drone photo and video things, projects, that sort of thing. Melanie does work with me on that extensively, although these last 4 trips to Wyoming now this winter, she has stayed in the desert with the van, and I just took the Prius up to Wyoming. This year it's been busy, so we've been pretty consistent, and the Prius was a fantastic way to do that. And then I just sleep in the car along the way. I'm also rocking the Starlink satellite internet here. This is the Starlink Mini. Fantastic device, and that's the reason I was able to camp out in places like this now, because it used to be I had to rely on cell signal for work and things and to stay in touch with friends and family and whatnot, and there's no cell phone signal, at least with Verizon out here in Parowan Gap. And of course I'm powering that off the Blue Eddy. This is a little EB3A, and that's also a fantastic device. All of the Blue Eddy products are fantastic. I've had several now. Full disclosure, they did send them to me to test. They did not pay me. They did not pre-approve my reviews or videos or anything, but they're fantastic, and the Starlink is fantastic. Critical gear I rely on when I'm traveling these days. So I'm going to be making my way back to Nevada so I can rejoin my wife before she forgets what I look like, because I've been gone as often as I've been there, and I've been gone almost a week already this time. But one more quick stop before I continue on to Nevada. This is the Dinosaur Track site, it's known as. It's just a short distance from the Parowan Gap. Parowan Gap is just down the road here behind me. I think it's probably a few miles. So I'll take a quick look around and show you a few of them. I've been here several times over the years, and it's always a fun hike. This one is not as easily accessible. I mean, you can pull right off the road into a dirt parking lot, off a paved road into a dirt parking lot. But it's kind of, it's a bit of a hike, and there is some elevation gains if you want to get up into the back. But it's kind of a slightly rough trail, so if you have trouble walking, this may not be a site you want to tackle. But the petroglyphs are a little more accessible. Now, if you look up here at this massive cliff, I think this is sandstone if my memory's right. I didn't read the sign again today. But these boulders have fallen off of there, and over the years they've fallen down. That has exposed some of them, so we can now see them. There's one here not too far from where you come in to the site. Unfortunately, it's been vandalized over the years. It's not all there anymore. This used to be a better specimen. But anyway, that's a, I think they call them cast tracks. And there's an example of it. And the deal with this style of tracks is dinosaurs or other animals, big animals, stepped in mud or soft soil and left footprints or imprints, and then the sedimentary rock filled it in. As was liquid dirt, mud at the time, right? Filled it in and hardened, and so later on you get these different, basically get cast, just like they do at a crime scene, where they pour plaster into a footprint or a tire track to make a mold. That's the same thing that happened here, but it happened naturally. There's a pretty interesting rock here. I think there's a sign somewhere that details what they call it, but it's kind of like concrete effectively. This is just formed from like mud that bound together rocks, and you can see it looks like basically it's like a cement with aggregate.
A bit of a climb getting up here. Hope you all are not as winded as I am. All right, we're approaching hands and knees scramble type steep here. The point of this little mountain goat adventure is there are a few more petroglyphs here, or dinosaur tracks, excuse me, at the dinosaur track site that are really cool. I was hoping to find them. Well, I'm not finding them so far. So I'm going to start making my way back to the car anyhow. And if I spot those things on the way out, I'll have the camera back on to show you. Well, we're back on almost flat ground again here. And my heart rate is coming back down to something approximating normal, or at least post-workout. And my breathing has settled down enough that I don't sound like I'm in the middle of running a marathon. So, while I was up there, way up there somewhere, I got a text from Melanie. And there's no phone signal here, like I was saying, at least Verizon. So unless I'm within Wi-Fi range of the car where the Starlink is running, I don't have any signal. Apparently I caught a little bit of Verizon up there in the mountain goat hole. Up there in the mountain goat territory. Anyway, Melanie was saying that she was glad I stopped here to rest last night, to get rested up, because she loves this spot too. And then she said that as soon as she realized where I was, she figured I'd be shooting a video. So she's got my number. She also said that she bet the stars were beautiful, which made me say, oh yeah, I meant to share that little detail. The stars were beautiful. She's right. Amazing. Clear night, which is why I get down to the low 20s. But clear night, no light pollution, because we're miles and miles and miles from anything, or at least anything that resembles civilization, as they call it, which I think is probably an overrated concept, but we're miles from anything, so it's pitch black out here at night, unless you got a full moon or something, which we did not last night. And so pitch black, no light pollution, no cloud cover, and the stars were amazing. I was wishing I had the energy to try some night photos, or even set up a night time lapse, because they were great. But it was 3:30 in the morning when I stopped, and I'd been driving since the mountain time. And I've been driving since I think about 1:30. So I was kind of tired, 14 hours in, and hours in the dark over the mountains through 65 plus mile an hour winds. And we're just getting back to the Prius here. So there's more to see here for sure. Some cool stuff, but that's all I'm going to do today, because I would like to get into Pahrump at a decent hour. Some of these sites that I really like, these historic sites like this, I'll make a point of stopping periodically when I'm in the area. Leaving aside things like vandalism, which has happened here, and that sort of thing, theft of artifacts, that happens. Leaving that stuff aside, there's just the natural weather elements, wind, rain, UV rays, that sort of stuff. And a lot of these sites are not protected as well as I might wish they were. So I always like to make a point of stopping and checking them out every now and again when I'm in the area, just so I can enjoy them in case they're not there forever. And of course, it gives me a chance to photograph or film some of these things and to share them with others who may not get to be in the neighborhood to enjoy sites like this, or who may not be able to make the hike around a place like that dinosaur track site. I know I keep saying I'm all done. It's the last thing I'm doing, and I'm getting back to Nevada, but here's one more thing right up here I've got to stop and show you while we're in the neighborhood. All right, so this is the Little Salt Lake out here, not to be confused with the Great Salt Lake up by Salt Lake City. And this is how I usually see it. It's just like a dried lake bed. I think there may be a little bit of water way out in the distance. Other than one time, this is how I've always seen it. And one time I came through with Melanie last year, so in 2024. I don't remember if it was in the spring or the fall, but it had been raining, and this was mostly filled back up again, sort of like Badwater Basin and Lake Manly over in Death Valley National Park that we were able to see last January. So to think of it, it may have been spring because there was a lot of rain in the desert last winter. So the Little Salt Lake, anyway, just outside of Parowan, Utah. Well, I have company here at the Little Salt Lake. This fellow wants to get in the car with me, but I told it is not going to fit. All right, go on home. Go on home.
All right, continuing along here, I just had to make a quick stop at the Maverick store in Cedar City, Utah, because I have not had coffee yet this morning. I've just been drinking water out of my giant water bottle. There we go. My big old half-gallon water bottle. So that's a good thing to do in the morning, but it's time now for some coffee at Maverick. Then I'll get on the road. Google tells me about 3.5 hours to Pahrump. I'm going to figure it's more like 4, but we're getting there anyway. Now, if you're asking me why there is a lighthouse in Cedar City, Utah, I positively do not know. It's a mystery for me. Just coming around Las Vegas now. Got a military helicopter doing maneuvers flying over the interstate here, coming right at us. Not sure how well that shows up on the camera. We're coming into Vegas. I tell you, it's warmed up a whole lot since this morning when I was getting up and getting going. There we go. It was low 20s, I guess, this morning, and we're now sitting at 73 degrees. As I'm coming into Las Vegas, that's definitely a whole lot nicer. I'm just rolling into Indian Springs here. This is on 95 outside of Las Vegas on the way to Pahrump. And there's a huge military base here. That's kind of the bulk of what's here off to the right. The fun thing about this military base, there's a gas station across the street that we stop at periodically. We need fuel or a stretch break coming through here. But the fun thing about this military base is they fly a lot of Reaper drones out of here for training missions, and they do touch and goes and stuff, and that's a lot of fun when you get to watch them. Of course, I'm a drone pilot myself, so that's just next level. I guess that's why I'm interested, but I don't see any today, unfortunately. We have stood out here in the parking lot and filmed them across the street as they landed and took off. Now we're about to leave Indian Springs, in the rearview mirror is just a little blip on a map, and there's nothing basically between Las Vegas and Indian Springs, and now there's nothing from Indian Springs until you get to Amargosa Valley, other than the little an exit for Mercury, which is another military installation. There's no services off there, just military stuff. We're just coming into Pahrump, Nevada here. As far as I'm aware, this is the only Pahrump in the entire world. And usually I feel the need to sing like Pahrump-a-bum-bum. I can't help myself. But anyways, we're going into Pahrump. This is Highway 160. This is the main drag through the town of Pahrump, where all the big box stores are and everything. It's also a lot of traffic, so I'm going to actually cut around on a back road because I got to get over to the south side of Pahrump, and I don't want to deal with all the traffic. So I'll take a back road to do that. I'm just about back to where I'm staying here in Pahrump. And if you've been watching along this far in the video, let me know in the comments what your experience is with Prius car camping or other small vehicle car camping. I've been doing this kind of stuff for forever. Decades, my whole adult life. The Prius, not so much. The Prius, just the last few years. I've been doing car camping in general while I'm traveling for quite a while. And, you know, you trade off in comfort for fuel efficiency and easy driving, not being limited in where you can go because of a larger vehicle or whatever. So I've been doing it for a long time. Prius or any hybrid in general definitely brings some additional bonuses to the table. But yeah, leave me a comment. Let me know what your experience has been and what you think about car camping in general and Prius or hybrid car camping in particular.